This week on the Markcast, big news, but not CFL news. We're talking XFL news, USFL news. What happened?
It's taken the world by storm. Jeffrey Pollack, our fearless leader-in-chief, CEO and president of XFL, stepping down. We're talking through all that, immediate reactions. And then we have all the stuff with the USFL setting up the bubble, moving to Birmingham, Alabama. So we got feet on the ground there. The big article that's circulating. Dylan Smith.
These are well-to-do investors too that we understand that they're speaking with. From what we understand, these are, it's private venture, so it's going to be well funded.
And then we are talking CFL Week 11. We have a big interviews coming up. We're talking with Dave Campbell, formerly our team, my team, the Edmonton Elks. Dave is coming on to talk through the quarterback dilemma that is going on with Trevor Harris.
It's partly an indictment on his play, but it's like, wow, does that mean you're done with me?
We have Scott Radley with Hamilton Spectator and radio fame coming on to talk Ticats, the Argonauts attendance problems, everything else that way.
2 in a row now on the last play of the game that they could have and probably should have won. But as someone pointed out to me a long time ago, in the standings they have W and L. They don't have a woulda, shoulda, coulda column, which the Ticats could be leading in right now.
And then I am traveling north with my wife to go see America's CFL team, the BC Lions, live in person. And we're talking with Gemma Karstens-Smith all about, Lions coming off the bye week, what they're going to be doing, sans Lucky Whitehead, to face the Calgary Stampeders this weekend.
It's an exciting time for the team. I think people are intrigued for the first time in a long time.
It's very exciting. We are a well-rounded show this weekend. We have all your CFL, we have all your XFL, and then we have all USFL. So please like and subscribe, and we have our giveaway too.
Also, you've noticed the name of the episode. What's going on with Cody?
Is Cody going to be wearing the white hat or the black hat when he comes back from his bye week? Is Cody Fajardo the man in black?
We'll see if he's a heel or a face. That's all happening this week on the Markcast. How was dinner, Reid?
It was good.
How was dinner?
It was good. We watched the Eagles try to come back. Terrible Eagles team. The Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, not doing well this year.
Nope. And,
Brady was Brady. It's good.
Brady is... I was talking about this with a coworker today. A brand new coworker. Well, he's brand new now, but he used to work with me back in the day. Anyway, we're talking about this today. We're like, we don't hate Brady anymore. He's just earned our respect. You can't hate on him any longer. So... didn't expect the Eagles to win that game. So, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Big show today. So we have my CFL, Cody Fajardo, the man in black. I thought we were going to do a lot of CFL news today. Lo and behold, today, busy day, Paul. I've been doing some sourcing on our own, some interviews, lots of USFL stuff. We have lots of CFL or XFL, and then we had the CFL stuff we had before. So that's why there are the interviews and everything. Reid did a lot of sourcing today, but a lot of it's in the can. So we'll just roll around it and we'll plug in the holes right here as we record.
And tons of USFL news apparently coming up in the show later too. Wow, USFL, interesting stuff,
big stuff.
So anyway, a lot of guests, 4 of them. Geez. Wow.
So we have a good friend of the show, Dave Campbell, not with the good football team, the Edmonton Elks. Dave was the last minute. We've had Trevor Harris got benched in favor of Taylor Cornelius. A lot of drama going on with Edmonton, what is going on with their season. We talked with Dave. Scott Radley, he's friends with Steve Milton that was on the show a couple of weeks ago with the Hamilton Spectator. We're talking Ticats and the horrendous Toronto Argonauts had 6,700 people at their game last week. So tremendous, it's alarming issues there. Gemma Karstens-Smith, she covers the BC Lions. So we talk, we're going to the show. I'm going to the game. We're going to talk about that. Going to the game this week. Gemma with that. And then Dylan was the last minute ad. Dylan Smith, Yellowhammer News out of Alabama. All the USFL stuff came out today from Birmingham. with the USFL, with the bubble, them setting up there. So I called up Dylan. He was nice enough to come on the show to kind of talk through all of the stuff, all the news that came out today about the Fox, about the budgets, about the teams, everything. I joked with Dylan, he has a very Alabama accent. And I said, well, we've been dealing with Canadian accents for quite a while now. So I feel like we are in good spirits with that.
What's that about? Speaking of Canadians, you're going to Canada this weekend.
Yes, and condolences. Paul was going to come. Paul's had some tragedies in the family, so Paul is not going to be making it. Dorothy and I are going to make the trip in your stead. And I have Danny. I call him Daniel Austin because that's how he signs his articles. I tweeted at Daniel. I said, if you are at the game, if you make the trip from Calgary, I'm going to buy you a hard drink or a soft drink of your choice. And he said, I'm on. So I think we're going to maybe try to meet up and bury the hatchet.
Patch things up there with Mr. Danny Austin. Good.
So I'm excited about that. It's football weekend in Canada. Jim Mullen's been promoting this a lot. Go to footballcanada.com. There's a whole slate of virtual, conferences talking about women in football, talking about, past history, Indigenous. They're going to be selling the Indigenous merchandise to raise money for that. So lots of things, footballcanada.com for that.
Very cool stuff. Again, tons of USFL news later on in the show. Stay tuned for that. But some big XFL news today. Huge, massive XFL news to start the show.
Yeah, a couple things. So we were, and just real quick before I forget, I don't want to talk about my viral tweet because we have too much to talk about. We are announcing the winners of the giveaway at the end of the show. So I have it all ready to go. I have the names. We have all that stuff. So if you were part of the 1,500 subscriber giveaway, please stay tuned. Also, please subscribe to this today. I mean, I tweeted today, I go, if you don't care about XFL, USFL, and CFL stuff, we are the place for you. So yes, first this week, we had just another stupid Danny Instagram, she's in Hawaii tweeting, Instagramming about the XFL. But then today we did actually have news. Jeffrey Pollack, former president and CEO of the XFL, is stepping down and moving on from the XFL.
Yeah, you sent this to me toward the end of my day. I was like, holy cow. Not toward the end of my day, but right in the middle of my day when everything was starting to get busy. And this is interesting that Jeffrey Pollack is stepping down effective immediately, but it's been in the works for quite some time now. They're still planning to return to play in 2023. I'm wondering if they've started to kind of make a new hire for the commissioner of the league. That's why Jeffrey Pollack is leaving.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, Jeffrey Pollack was really instrumental getting the league through the bankruptcy, right? Getting it ready for sale, kind of keeping the lights on during all of the stuff last year. So I have to imagine it's a mutual parting, right? I have to imagine Jeffrey is just looking to move on to other things. What's interesting to me is there's only a finite number of people now from the original, it was Jeffrey or one other person. So, they're building a new regime. The quote I had from Mike on here. So Ben Fisher got the credit from Sports Business Sports Business Journal for reporting the news. Mike Mitchell confirmed that he's known about this was coming for a while. It says the new hire is expected to act more as a football boss who oversees those aspects of the league. And so that's kind of that chief football officer role that we've been promised for months and months and months. That's more of a Oliver Luck commissioner than the Jeffrey Pollack business. Perhaps Redbird has people in place that can already do the businessy things that Jeffrey Pollack was doing before. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, Redbird did make those investments in Fenway Sports Group, and they have a lot of sports-minded people in Fenway Sports Group it's Fenway Sports Group, and clearly it's a Red Sox-oriented forum, but they own, various different holdings in Liverpool and other things like that. So maybe somewhere there's somebody with some football acumen in that Fenway Sports Group that might come in and start things off here.
The quote I had here, and I tweeted this out, the quote I had from the article that struck out the most to me, my screen's dark right now because I have the Twitter open. This is from Mike. The one clear thing that the league that they hope to present will bear very little or any resemblance to the XFL that existed in 2020. And I tweeted, I go, XFL homers, be ready to be shook a little bit. Because that's the problem we dealt with the CFL people, right? We were coming in and they were protective. Then you have a lot of these XFL people with, less lineage, right, to the league saying, I'm holding this dear. Well, no one's left really. I mean, this is a whole brand new in name flip of what the XFL was.
And maybe they should just change the initials too. I don't know. That might be on the table. If they want to shake things up a lot, then maybe just get rid of the thing that's like the albatross hanging around your neck. I don't know.
I'm really not opposed to that at this point. I don't. I had questions today on Twitter about all this. Like, I just can't imagine. We're 3 years after the thing, and we're going to do this. And Jeffrey Pollack, he was the lifeblood that was left, and now him moving on. I've heard some names circled that they're thinking about bringing in. I have one that I would really like to see them bring in as the CFO, the Chief Football Officer. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see.
All right. Moving on. CFL scores this week. Argos win 2 games, 35-16 over the Red Blacks, and then 24-23 over the Tiger Cats on Wednesday and Monday. Busy schedule for Toronto. They won both games. That's impressive.
Toronto's leading the East.
Yep. Stamps beat the Rough Riders 22-19. That's kind of unexpected if you ask me. The Blue Bombers roll over the Elks, thankfully, 30-3. And the Alouettes beat the Red Blacks. So the Red Blacks took 2 L's this week. 20-16. The Red Blacks lose there to Montreal. This week we got Winnipeg on tap, visiting Edmonton this time. The Stamps go to BC, as Reid will be at that game. And the Alouettes are going to turn around and face the Red Blacks at their field.
Yes, as Rod Peterson coins, it kind of is a dog's breakfast of games this weekend, except for the Stamps Lions. That's going to be a good game. Stampeders are on a hot streak right now. Yes, the victory over the Rough Riders very much is spurring again this continuing Cody Fajardo heel turn that I'm tracking. That the man in black that we are tracking on this, and very very curious to see what comes out with that. So I tremendous. I have some stories here coming up with Cody, but yes, Argos looking really good. I feel like so far it could be a Hamilton, Toronto, or a Winnipeg, Toronto Grey Cup in Hamilton.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
It would not make the Hamilton people that hate the Argos very happy at all. So that would be like us hosting the 49ers at Lumen Field. Like it'd be like, I really don't like that. So you see the pick'ems here. I just put this so you can see it. BC Lions holding firm in the middle, obviously Winnipeg, and then Argonauts shooting straight to number 2 here in the power rankings.
I love it. I love every minute of it. Speaking of the Riders, let's see here. Micah Johnson, defensive lineman, says that even though they've narrowed Saskatchewan's lead for second in the West Division just down to 2 points, he still thinks that they're not quite there yet. They're a confident group. He says he felt that they should have won that game. He doesn't think it's a confidence thing. You have a bunch of confidence guys in that room. We just got to watch the film and keep figuring everything out. They're off until the 23rd now. Saskatchewan is, and they'll take on the Stamps on that day.
Yeah, so I talked with Gemma about this. We talk about the Cody Fajardo of it. There's something is awry in this locker room. We have our quote here. Cody Fajardo went home for the bye week. I've asked reporters about this. It's not uncommon. It is, he's going home for an extended time. It's one of those does time heal all wounds? Cody, remember, had the harsh words to say about his teammates, and he needed receivers that have more tools. And now, here we are. We're on a bye week. We're off another loss, right? Another loss to a division rival. And I don't know. I'm curious. The episode thumbnail is Cody Fajardo from Westworld. I know you don't like Westworld, but he's looking at either taking the white. You don't like Westworld, right?
I watched the first season, but I haven't gotten to the,
okay. So, yeah. but remember, so for anyone that's looking at the episode thumbnail, when you go to Westworld, which is the fictional TV show on HBO, you can select a white cowboy hat or a black cowboy hat. And it's, if you are a white cowboy hat, you're the good guy. And if you're the black cowboy hat, and so that's why it's Cody Fajardo, the man in black, ? And that was famously Ed Harris from the first season.
Interesting stuff. Moving on now to Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers head coach Mike O'Shea gave embattled place kicker Ali Mortada a vote of confidence on practice Tuesday. Of course, they're rolling everybody, so your place kicker is not that important right now, kicking field goals or whatnot. You're scoring touchdowns and blowing everybody out. So basically said the misses that he's had are just outside the uprights. They aren't hooks and slices. The ball is not different every time. The 5 misses, they all look exactly the same. So there's just a slight correction needs to be made, according to Mike O'Shea. Interesting stuff. And he's a rookie. So,
but it's like the one chink in the armor. That's why I put this on here, because we kind of have one negative thing to say about Winnipeg. And it's like, yeah, their kicking could be a little bit better.
Yeah, that's the only flaw in their game right now. Longtime CFL play-by-play man Rod Black says goodbye to TSN. He is ending his run at the Sports Network. He tweeted the other day, sad to say goodbye today to my friends at CTV and TSN, but so excited for my next chapter will be as amazing as the last. Thank you. Had the time of my life.
This is big. Rob Black's been there for a long time. There's even Rob Black, parody accounts on Twitter, which says a lot for, as famous as you can in the CFL to have parody accounts of you. But no, he's been a broadcaster for 40 years. He spent 30 years at Bell Media, calling the games. He was on, the broadcast this year. I mean, he was like the number 2 on some of the games play-by-play. So it is an odd move. It came out of nowhere today as we record. Obviously, tomorrow is, whatever as this airs. But big news. I saw a lot of people, family, very upset. I've listened to him for years. Not upset, but just sad about it. Sad about the news.
Yep, definitely. 30 years. Wow. 30 of those with Bell Media family. Interesting stuff. Calgary Stampeders quarterback Jake Maier enters COVID protocol. He's out a minimum of 10 days. Yikes.
Yeah. So, Calgary is coming to BC. Bo's kind of on the mend now. Bo's had some problems. Jake Maier has come in, plays exceptionally well as a rookie quarterback, has, excelled in the games that he did, even though the record didn't reflect it. So basically now they don't have a lot. If Bo is not doing well, Michael O'Connor is the third string backup that would be in their place. But we'll see what happens in the game on Saturday. But Jake Maier, he was in the protocol earlier this week, and then it came out that he did in fact test positive. So that is why he is out. The minimum 10 days per Daniel Austin, Calgary, as I will call him now.
Another more quarterback news. Elks to start Taylor Cornelius and Dakota Prukop.
Yep.
At the quarterback position over Trevor Harris. Of course, the Elks, there's a culture issue there. They're facing Winnipeg at home Friday, and last week they got blown out. Dave Campbell's got more about this later on, but I think it's interesting that one of those spring football quarterbacks, the spring football thing that never quite works out, one of those spring football quarterbacks starting for the Elks. Interesting.
I tweeted, and I had a lot of positive. I had some people like, what do you mean? I said, it's very ironic to me. To me, it's the definition of irony that the one football team that came out and openly talked crap about the XFL now has an XFL quarterback that they benched Trevor Harris for. And I had people like, that's not ironic. I'm like, no, that's literally the definition of ironic. You were the only team that talked crap about the XFL, and now Taylor, because it wasn't Trevor Harris isn't hurt, right? And that's what we talk about in the episode, or in the interview. This is a benching. This is, I do not feel comfortable with you in the first or second position. I feel more comfortable with our second and third quarterbacks and you taking the back seat. I mean, he's not even dressing for the games because in the CFL they can only dress 2 quarterbacks.
That's indicative, and that might mean that your time there is almost over.
Well, there's been, and we have a story here coming up about Nick Arbuckle trade rumors. I mean, people have talked, do they cut Trevor? Do they try to trade him? I mean, I talked with Dave about this. I'm like, there's only so many games left. Like, why ruin the kid's life here by trying to trade him or bench him? I mean, who cares if the Elks, if they end the season at 3-13, or do we really care at this point? Like, let's just get through the season. But I guess, Elizondo is ready to go. I mean, these are moves being made to try to preserve or save jobs if he's worried about it.
Interesting stuff. Speaking of the Elks, Canadian offensive lineman Jacob Ruby has spoken publicly for the first time since being released by the Elks at the end of August. He said the past weeks have been really difficult for my family and I want to make something clear. I made a mistake. I made a mistake in misrepresenting my vaccination status. I came forward with my mistake. I've been willing to accept the consequences. I want to apologize to everyone who's been affected by my poor decision, specifically the Elks organization and their culture issues, and CFL, PA, and the CFL, who have worked so hard to put on the season safely. This has been a learning experience for me as I strive to be a better man, father, and husband. I will set a good example of learning from mistakes and better myself going forward.
Remember, he was on the line, said he was vaccinated. They didn't have this kind of spurred the whole thing there, and they've had 17 players now. He is on the blacklist for the season. He can't be signed by anybody, and so this is one of those things where obviously he's trying to make amends now, and it's good. I mean, we have not heard from him. This is the first time he's come out since all of that, so it's good to see that he is making apologies.
Definitely. Is this yeah, okay. Vernon Adams on the 6-game injured list, injured in the final minutes of the victory against Ottawa Monday. Matt Schiltz will now completed the game at quarterback position, and he'll start in Ottawa this week.
Yep. And so Shea Patterson, who he was in the spring league before, we've tracked him. He's promoted to the active roster to back up Matt. This is not good news for Ottawa. For the Alouettes. Montreal has really lived and died by Vernon Adams all season. This is one of those things where he is really the lifeblood of the team, and to see him go down injured in the last minutes, it's just one of those things like, there's only so much time this season. I feel bad for these players that are getting injured, and for like what purpose at this point? Like Winnipeg's going to win anyway. So I'm kind of like, I feel bad for Vernon. Like I hope he just takes the rest of the season off, heals up, Alouettes do what they can and kind of move on from there.
More quarterback talk. The BC Lions released former New England Patriots quarterback Danny Etling. He was on the practice roster. The 6'3", 220-pound passer was a 7th round draft pick of the New England Patriots in the 2018 draft. He spent his rookie season on the practice squad there, earned a Super Bowl ring, and then got picked up by the Atlanta Falcons in 2019. With that being said, it looks like the Seahawks have signed him.
This is why it's in here. This is why it's interesting because it's obviously BC Lions, America's CFL team, but Russell Wilson's out. I mean, this do we have a Geno Smith and then this Danny Etling comes in, and I mean, is that realistic in the NFL? Like it is the CFL, like we sign someone and just promote them right away?
I mean, look what happened with
Taylor Heineke. What am I saying? I mean, this could be the next great. This could be the next great alternate football story.
I mean, I think Russell's done in Seattle. I mean, we talked to Robert Turbin. I think Russell's done. Yeah, I really do.
If you guys haven't, if you want a good interview, go back. That got no views at all. We had Super Bowl champion Robert Turbo Turbin on the show many moons ago during his time in Fan Control Football, which we actually have Fan Control Football news. I really should have plugged that at the top. But anyway, yeah, I think Russell's probably done. That is very interesting. If now Danny Etling and Geno Smith.
That's great. It's a great situation in Seattle. Really looking forward to that.
Better every day.
Sorry, I'm kind of distracted. The Dodgers are playing the Giants right now. Of course,
okay.
I'm hoping the Dodgers do pull this out because, Nydia will be very happy if they do. And then, of course, I get this notification that the Cardinals have fired their manager after a 17-game winning streak, but the Yankees are going to stick with Aaron Boone. That makes sense. From that team, that's my team, the Yankees, to another team that's my team. Toronto Argonauts quarterback Nick Arbuckle, I'm getting my words mixed up, subject of trade discussions recently. At least one team has called the Argos about the 28-year-old quarterback, and then they're checking in with multiple clubs to see what the interest is.
It's interesting. Remember we had our McLeod Thompson is the king of the CFL. Everyone remembers that week too. Everyone remembers that. And then he came out and stuck up the joint. Arbuckle got hurt again. And then McLeod. Here's the issue though. I love McLeod, but as dominant as the Argos have been lately, they really have kind of stunk on offense a lot. I mean, they won the one game purely off of defense. They had like 3 defensive touchdowns. They won with a field goal kick at the end of the game on Monday, but it really took them until about halfway through the third quarter to even get any momentum going on offense. So I don't know. It's one of those they're riding the hot hand. It's like, well, we don't need Nick Arbuckle anymore. I'm like, I might keep that in my back pocket. But
well, they also played 2 games last week, Reid. You got to give them a break. They're probably tired. Probably tired. Yeah, this scheduling with the Thanksgiving and then the double, the 5 games in 1 week is pretty crazy. But yeah, he's got a big contract. That's kind of what they're looking, right? Signed. I had all the notes here. Signed a $150,000 signing bonus. So maybe trying to save some money, get rid of him. So BC Lions released American running back Shaq Cooper. He signed with the Leos as a free agent in February, and then spent the first 8 games of the 2021 season in BC.
Yeah, that's sad. They really, it kind of sounds like they're going to blow out and really try to rebuild their running game in the offseason. I mean, it's been horrendous so far. With the Winnipeg, it was like almost non-existent. Gemma and I talked about that. Maybe they're trying to work on that in the bye week, but I just don't think you discover a running game, in a 7-day and then come back. So the other thing on here, I'm going to put these photos up. You see Lucky Whitehead, the X-ray that he had. It's really small, so it would fit on here. But Lucky Whitehead tweeted this. He actually played most of the game with this injury wrapped up, and then got the stuff afterward.
How do you play with that? I mean, the picture's small on this Google Doc, but I can see the break. It's clear as day. Like I don't have to zoom in to see that break. That's a significant break.
Yeah, I
Lucky
will.
White. Wow.
Yeah, I'll put the picture on here so you can check out. But yeah, I mean, Lucky, he's out. I think they said he's out 3 to 5 weeks. So obviously the bye week helps cut that down. They've made some moves to. We'll be curious to see this week. You know how they go. Lucky was kind of their go-to guy, Michael Riley. So I'm be curious to see what they decide to do there.
Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton approved for full capacity. Good news for the Grey Cup, and the max capacity is $24,000 and 24,000 people. I don't know why I said $24,000. I'm tired. It's been a long day. 24,000 people allowed into Tim Hortons Field, and hopefully we'll be in attendance in any way, shape, or form. If it's a member of the press or if it's just a casual fan, we're going to be there.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. There's a lot of text here, but I can just talk through this. So they announced today. Ticats, that we're hosting this year. Next year, I believe it's I don't quote me on who next year is, but then in 2023, they've announced that it is going to go back to Hamilton because this year, obviously, a lot of the festivities aren't going to be the same, right? It's going to be just the max. Going to be, it's like remember when they did WrestleMania in Tampa and then it sucked, and then they did it again the next year because of COVID and all that. So I really didn't think this was a big deal. Like I saw the story come out, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like it's a made good for whatever. People today lost their freaking minds about it. That why does Hamilton get it again this year? It's ridiculous. Here's the deal. They hadn't had it in 25 years before this year. This year is kind of going to blow. It's not going to be the financial boon that they want with everybody traveling in. So they're going to make it. I think this is the best decision the CFL could have made. Let them go back. We'll do it next year. But the reactions I saw online of people were crazy.
Note from listener Brian via Twitter. He said the combination of scaling down in 2021 and the fact they haven't hosted it in 25 years makes it an easy call to give them 2023. That's very cool stuff.
Yeah, it is.
I'm all in favor of this.
It's going to be a mosaic next year. But yeah, the other interesting note with this is the first time they've really talked about 23 through all the XFL talks, right? It's just interesting that they've gone out and announced that we are, because remember, Dan Ralph, friend of the show, said, hey, he thinks that the talks are going to continue after the Grey Cup. I don't know if they are or not, but it's interesting to see that CFL is planning 2023, November, presumably of that. That's a long time to be planning out and putting your stake on that to pull that back later. But yeah, people lost their minds about this. I'm like, no, this is clearly a make good for the team. Because they're not going to get as many people traveling in casuals as you would normally.
That's fair. TV viewership this week. Toronto Hamilton got 597,000 people to watch on TSN. That's compared to Indy Baltimore, 596,000. Of course, that was a great game. Lamar Jackson just went off. NHL season kicked off this weekend as well, so that might help or hurt CFL numbers. Reid was at the Seattle Vegas game with the Golden Knights. Shout out to the Golden Knights. They beat up on the Seattle Kraken. That was nice.
It was 3-4. Kraken won tonight.
It was 3-0, and then you guys came back, and then Vegas took it over. So it was the score was not as indicative of how much of a blowout that really was.
I was very sad. I had a lot of really drunk, angry, yelling videos at Rod Peterson.
Hopefully he doesn't block you like Cody Fajardo did.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about this, the CFL viewership on Monday, the Toronto game beat Monday Night Football. I mean, it's in Canada, but 597 to 596. That is interesting to me.
Very much so.
Especially considering that the Toronto's attendance, this was in Hamilton, but the Toronto attendance was so poor this week. And then, 414 for the Vegas Golden Knights. So, they're hanging in there. Toronto gets the TV viewers. It is getting the butts of the people in the stands. Yes.
All right.
And then you see this. This is just a couple quick things. So they're putting the Winnipeg, the wonderful blanket logo that we've had, the indigenous blanket designed by Danae Sinclair. They're going to be putting that on the team helmets this weekend in place of the traditional W they have. I'll put the photo on the thing. I just think that's a really cool. BC did that. They took the logo and they superimposed it on the field for some of their home games. And so I think that's interesting.
Very cool stuff. Taylor Heineke apparently was done wrong in the new Madden. He looks. God, what does he even look like? He looks like a mutant Steve Nash in this picture.
They say it's like a Russian Bond villain.
Yeah, it's totally I want to go play GoldenEye on my end. I don't have a Nintendo 64, but if I had one, I would go play GoldenEye right now and play. This Taylor Cornelius looks like one of the villains on there.
Yeah.
You ever play that? You ever play that when you were a kid? GoldenEye?
I played many hours.
You were Odd Job all the time, right? Because you couldn't get, you little.
Well, you couldn't do Odd Job and then Jaws. Because Jaws would always it would be a headshot if you were Odd Job, right? Because of the way the guns lined up. Every shot was a headshot if you were Odd Job.
Yeah, so you guys banned people from playing as Odd Job when you're playing, because that seemed like that was the rule. If you played with people, like, you can't be Odd Job. You can't.
I'm slapping. Remember the slap? Remember when you didn't have a gun and you would just go and then remember then you could play slappers only and there were no guns and then everyone would just go around.
Such a fun game.
Anyway,
Gonna take a break. Gonna toss to our guests, Gemma, Scott, Dave, and the homeboy from Alabama, Dylan. That's all coming up next.
Well, Dave Campbell, thank you so much for coming back on. I feel like the last time we talked, Edmonton had the new name. I was wearing Edmonton merch, everything. Now we are BC Lions podcast. Edmonton is struggling a little bit. How are you doing so far this season with the CFL?
Well, it hasn't gone the way I expected from an Edmonton Elks perspective. I thought on paper they were going to be much better on the field. And it just shows you, paper is just, it's sometimes not worth what's printed on it. So I think from that respect, it's been pretty tough to see what's been going on the field. They have not met expectations. I think they're a better team than they're showing, but you know what? You are what your record is. I fully believe that. And they are full marks for 2-6 because they just are not a three-phase team. You hear about complementary football. They play very much uncomplimentary football. Their special teams have struggled mightily, especially in the return game. Offense has been inconsistent. Defense is their best phase, I think. And I think they're the lifeblood and the emotion of the team. But we haven't seen overly consistent play from them at times, but I think they've been giving their team a chance to be in games. I think they're the one phase that does give the team a chance. So it's disappointing. And guess what? There's 6 games left. Wonderful.
Yeah, because this is something I'm trying to figure out because, obviously we have a new regime there, right? Coach Elizondo, but, a lot of these teams have newer coaches, right? Ryan Dinwiddie, right? I mean, so it's not, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it the year off? Is it just all the new changes going on there? I mean, what do you attribute it to?
Well, you mentioned the year off, and I think that is a factor because you're just not sure how it's going to change a team or change certain players because that's a long time away. And I think we have seen that play out in the CFL. I mean, there's only one team that's in Tier 1, and that's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. There is a Tier 2, but there's a significant drop-off to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the Toronto Argonauts, even your beloved now BC Lions. I don't even think Calgary's in Tier 2. I'm not sure if BC's in Tier 2. And then you have the bottom tiers with with the Elks and with the Red Blacks, and then Ticats and Alouettes are hanging around. But from the Elks' perspective, they had a head coach in place in Scott Milanovich. Then he left in early February, because he took a job with the Indianapolis Colts to the NFL. So then Brock Sunderland, the GM's in a bit of scramble mode, so he picks up the phone. Who do I know? I know Jamie Elizondo very well from their days with the Ottawa Red Blacks. So he got hired in early February, right before free agency. Not the best time to hire a coach, but it is what it is. So, I can't solely blame it on that. I think it's a factor. Part of me wonders what would happen if Scott Milanovich didn't leave for the NFL and stuck it out for the CFL. And they've had offensive line inconsistency. They had so many tackles retire. I think they had 3 or 4. Then they've had injuries. And they haven't had play out of there. I know we're going to get to this. Their quarterback play hasn't been very good. Their receiver play hasn't been very good. James Wilder is probably their most outstanding player. It's just baffling to me that this team is performing the way they are. But you know what? There was in the offseason when you have to make that major of a change and not have your head coach basically in place until early February, that's a little tough. But at the same time, I would still say this was a very big disappointment. And when you look at the quarterback area, Jamie Elizondo and Trevor Harris go back a long way from their days as members of the Toronto Argonauts to the Ottawa Red Blacks to now. And I think that's why I'm very surprised of what we're seeing on the field from Trevor Harris, that we're not seeing much better from him and from Jamie Elizondo. It's really surprising and shocking to me.
Yeah, and that's obviously why, we called you to come on. We had, it was the week that Trevor Harris went in the injury. We had, I think, Milt Stiegel and a couple other people on. We're talking Edmonton, and we're saying, as long as you have Trevor Harris, right, Edmonton's going to be at least competitive, right, at least in the mix. That afternoon, it came out, he had the neck injury, in practice, all that came out. And then it was like, oh my God, now it's, worlds are erupting, right? Taylor Cornelius wasn't super consistent, right? I mean, it seems like he came out the first week, did better. But now to have Trevor Harris back and then to not go in that route, what do you make of that?
Off the game last week in Winnipeg, 30-3, just a really terrible performance, minus the defense. I thought they hung in there as long as they could, and they gave the Elks a shot. But, it's funny. Morley Scott, who is my broadcast partner on 630 Ched, and Jerry Montajon, who covers the team on Post Media, we call ourselves the Edmonton Contingent, who travel and cover the team. We're sitting around breakfast on Saturday morning before going to the airport, and Morley asked both of us, what's the one thing that the Elks could do to really shake it up going into next week? And we both said, Jerry and I both said, change the quarterback. Because that's the only thing that I could think of. Because, we're talking to Winnipeg media after the game on Friday night. Are they going to fire Brock Sunderland? Are they going to fire Jamie Elizondo? And I'm like, I don't think so. You can't fire Jamie Elizondo now because who's going to call plays? He's wearing so many hats right now. So you're just going to have to ride this out. But I said quarterback change. Not expecting on Monday to hear Jamie Elizondo say, we're going to go with Taylor Cornelius and Dakota Prukop, and Trevor Harris is going to come all the way off the roster. I was shocked. It's been an interesting dynamic this year between Jamie Elizondo and Trevor Harris. I don't think at times Elizondo has been happy with Trevor Harris's play, the way he hangs onto the football, the way he seems to be indecisive, wants to be too perfect, not throwing the ball on time. It's been surprising to see Trevor Harris's performance this year. 4 of 6 games, he hasn't played well. The 2 games he did was the first win against the Lions in early August before the COVID outbreak, and Labor Day in Calgary. He was sensational in both of those games, especially on Labor Day. But the message it sends, though, we're going to take you all the way off the roster. Like that is surprising to me, and I know Elizondo has a lot of respect, and he knows Taylor Cornelius well, and likes what he brings to the table. But for me, Reid, it's just we're picking from a batch of not very good right now as far as quarterbacks go. So we already seen what we have in Trevor Harris. So Taylor Cornelius, we've seen a little bit, but maybe if you're Elizondo, I just like what I see in Cornelius right now, want to see more of that because I've already seen enough of Trevor Harris. Are we going to see Trevor Harris play before the end of the year? I think we will. But this is an interesting move, and I don't know what the long-term effect is going to be.
Well, it shakes confidence, right? It has to if you're Trevor Harris. It has to. It's like the Carson Wentz of it all, right? You can't go through all this stuff and then come. I mean, people are human beings, right? And it's got to be in the back of your head. It's like I got benched, I got pulled from, and I was the designated team leader here.
It's shocking. Yeah, it really is. So now it's interesting in practice this week. Trevor Harris has done hardly anything. He hasn't taken. He's been a third string quarterback this week. He's taken participated in individual drills. The one thing we have seen from Trevor Harris, and I know he's frustrated. I know he's not happy with this, but yesterday in practice, he's in the north part of the field near the end zone, and he's working with working with Taylor Cornelius and with Darrell Walker. And you can see Trevor Harris talking to Taylor. And I thought, okay, now that's Trevor Harris right there. He's as upset as he is putting it aside, or has enough of wherewithal and experience to put it aside and help his young quarterback. And, Taylor's been very complimentary to Trevor Harris, but this is hard for Trevor Harris. And I go back to the long term. Like, what does this mean? He's under contract for 2022 now. It's only worth the paper it's printed on, and if the team decides to rip it up or not. But it's, I'm still shocked that Jamie Elizondo went this route by not dressing him. It's a very interesting move.
How did you think that Taylor Cornelius played in the games that you saw?
So the first start on September 18th against the Bombers, he only had 1 day of full first team reps because Trevor Harris tried to perform and practice, couldn't, pulled himself out at the end of day 2. And that, that's a hard change to make. I thought Cornelius came out with a slow start, and then he got into rhythm in the second and third quarter. I thought he was very good. I thought he moved well. I thought he threw the ball on time. And then, unfortunately, the book on Taylor Cornelius, he's going to throw an interception that is going to be a game decider. He throws a pick 6, and then the next play that he touches the ball, he gets strip sacked, and the Bombers score another defensive touchdown. It wasn't helped by special teams because he was backed up near his own goal line because the Elks returner at the time, I think it was Ernest Edwards, didn't take a knee and take a single and put his offense on the 35, put it on the 4 or the 8 or whatever it was. So then he gets full, Taylor Cornelius gets full for first team reps going into Ottawa. And I thought he really struggled at times, except for he moves well in the pocket. He steps up in the pocket really well, and he can get the ball downfield and flip the field real fast. Other than that, and he did score 3 touchdowns, but he threw 2 interceptions, including one that was a key moment in the game. I think it was a 1-possession game or, it was a 10-point game. And he throws the ball to Mike Jones in the end zone, but he's offline by a lot. And then, the game is pretty much over at that point. And then the game he came in last week in Winnipeg, different scenario because he's a backup. Thought he gave him a bit of a spark, but it's a tough situation for a young quarterback to come in when you're down by forever. And yes, he threw an interception, but I don't blame him for throwing making the decision of throwing the ball downfield because you have to. So overall, I don't think I've seen enough of Taylor Cornelius to be convinced that he could be the next one or the next starting quarterback for this team or starting quarterback in this league. But he does give you different things than Trevor Harris, who I think has struggled with, like I mentioned, movement. He doesn't move as well as he used to. His quick decision-making doesn't seem to be very quick right now. His throws are not good. But bottom line, their offensive line play has been dreadful. It's not good enough, and partly because they don't have the depth. They're a little young there, and they've had to use so many combinations in their 8 games. This is the worst I've ever seen a team have to deal with offensive line issues in my time covering this league. It's been staggering.
When we announced that we were going to have you on, we had questions between Taylor Cornelius and then Dakota Prukop, which I admittedly don't know anything about, right? But as the third string Elks, it was said to me that Cornelius and him are very different styles of play, right? And it was curious that they would go with both of those as, like we said, keeping Trevor off the roster. Any thoughts on Dakota?
Yeah, he's. It's funny because he's been in the league for a while. He's was with the Argos for 3 years, I believe, and didn't play very much. He is someone that can run with the football. He likes to throw deep. He's got a live arm. I think the accuracies and the decision making, that's another thing that's in question. I'll get to the funny part. The funny part to me is he was with Calgary in training camp, and the Stampeders cut him. And so many of the media members that I talked to that have covered the team for a long time, like Mark Steven, for example, he said, I was shocked because he played really, really well. And then, the Elks brought him in because I think they released Troy Williams, who was supposed to be the backup, or we pegged him as the backup going into training camp. Dakota's a good guy. He's someone that's close with Trevor Harris, and I think he's a good teacher. He's kind of like what Logan Kilgore was for Trevor Harris in 2019 and played some games. But, Dakota Prukop, I see him as someone who is got some good wheels and has a live arm, but is inconsistent as well. So I definitely think Taylor Cornelius is the better quarterback than Dakota Prukop, but there's nothing wrong with having a guy that's been there, done that a little bit in the league and has a good offensive mind and has a good head for the game. And I think Dakota's kind of become a player coach in a lot of respects. And there's another sort of player coach aspect as well, even though he's not a player anymore, is Will Arndt, who used to be with your Lions and with the Red Blacks at one time, played with Trevor Harris. So, they have a quarterback room with a lot of cohesion. But for Dakota Prukop, he's probably going to be the guy on Friday that's going to be the short yardage back and going to come in for, maybe some different type of change of pace plays and, run the football or try and put the defense in the bind, do option plays, that sort of thing. So, but I don't think the ceiling is particularly high with Dakota.
It's one of those, like, are we going to get another Caleb Evans? Are they going to just come out and blow? But then, it's like you get that spark for a week. It's really hard to get that, game planning, right? You are going to get a little bit of that, like, oh, wow. You get a little bit of success, but having that sustainment long-term, even Cornelius, off that late start the first time,
Well, you look at Caleb Evans, good start against the Elks. Not all that good against the Argos, and so against the Alouettes. So, but there's something there. Taylor Cornelius, I'm not sure yet, but we have no choice. We're going to see him, right? So I hope we can see improvement in his game, because there are some things I do like in his game. It's really raw right now, and I don't see a refined game from Cornelius yet, even in his early days here in the CFL, but he's got good skill set. He can keep plays alive a lot better, I think, right now than Trevor Harris, but I would not anoint him as, legitimate at this point.
Last question for you. With as just crazy as the season is, right, coming off and all the things, I think Rod Peterson called it like a dog's breakfast yesterday, where, we're just kind of getting through the season. The long-term ramifications of pulling Trevor Harris, right, for, a finite number of games left on a losing record, like we said, I don't think Coach Elizondo's job is in jeopardy. I think he's spoken, and it seems like he holds himself quite well. I feel like he is a good spokesperson, right, even when he made the announcements and things. But, like, is it worth the long-term pulling Trevor for, like, whatever we're going to get out of Taylor? That's my question.
Yeah, that's the question right now, is how much damage control do you have to do off of this move with your number one quarterback? So is this an indictment of his play? Is the coach upset about something else? I don't know. It's just weird that he hasn't played very well this year, but he has played well, and he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I don't think Trevor Harris is elite, but I think he's very good. So, I mean, and the line's very thin with that, right? So now 2022 has a lot of free agent quarterbacks, but if they're thinking that way, I'm not saying that they are, but let's just go down that road. If they're thinking, well, there might be another quarterback that we want. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get him, right? So you need to make sure you're good with the franchise quarterback that you have now. And, Jamie Elizondo is going to have to own this, clearly, because this is his decision. And Brock Sunderland, he's not going to step in and say, no, you can't do that and play Trevor Harris, right? But Brock Sunderland's going to be evaluating this decision as well. So, but yeah, I mean, is anyone going to lose their jobs over this? Well, I don't know. That it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the off season. But the long-term ramifications of this is something that we're going to watch. If Trevor Harris doesn't play for the rest of the year, what message does that send? I'm not convinced. You got 6 games left. You got to think Trevor Harris is going to play at some point, unless there is an injury, and they're not telling us there's an injury. I just find it strange. He's third string quarterback and has done nothing. Usually third string quarterbacks run something, and he's done absolutely zero. So I'm not sure if there's an injury concern with Trevor. It's just the message that has been sent. So let's just land the plane here. Jamie Elizondo is not happy with the quarterback play. It's not all on Trevor, but he wants different things and skill sets and the way the quarterback position is run. He thinks Taylor Cornelius and Dakota Prukop are the best combination for Friday and gives them the best chance to win. That's the line that is, in my opinion, if I'm Trevor Harris, stings the most. It's partly an indictment on his play, but it's like, wow, does that mean you're done with me? Does that mean that's it? Like, what does it mean when you say 15 and 14, which is Cornelius and Prukop's number, are the best combination for a win? That's the line that could be. Well, I think it is going to be an interesting line to follow for the rest of the year, because that's like, wow, that's like pointing the finger straight at your starting quarterback and going, you're not good enough, and we don't believe you're good enough. So we're going to go with the rookie who's only started 2 games. He'll start his 3rd game on Friday, and Dakota Prukop, who's been a career backup and has been, below average. Interesting to me.
I would ask you your predictions on the game Friday, but I think we already know. I won't put you.
I don't think it'll be a 27-point loss or win by the Bombers. I do think the Elks have a chance to make this really close. And I mean, you never know. 6 games left. They're not out of the race, but they're not in it at all, right now as well. So a lot of intrigue going into the game, though, with Taylor Cornelius at quarterback. But do I expect to win? It's going to be really difficult for the Elks to win this one.
Dave, thank you so much for the last-minute call, coming on, talking to this. It's fascinating to me now with the Edmonton of it all, and it was my team and I, so I just am very dear. It's funny, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Reid. Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Scott Radley here out of Hamilton with the Hamilton Spectator. A friend of the show, Steve Milton, was just on a couple weeks ago. I appreciate that. How are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
I am great. Listen, I don't know that I can live up to Steve, but we'll give it a go here. I mean, Steve is a legend. Steve is Steve. There's not a person who follows football in Canada that doesn't know Steve. So I just hope I can sort of follow along in his vapor trail.
My wife said he does have very beautiful hair, and I'm like with you, I'm also follically challenged. So Steve, we'll put us both to shame with that. Steve has more hair than a man his age should. I mean, on his head anyway. So that's, we'll leave it there. So, I want to talk a little Hamilton. I want to talk a little CFL week 11 here, which is crazy. We're at week 11. Yeah. Obviously, coming into the bye week for Hamilton, a couple of hard losses. It seemed like they had a lot of steam, right? And then we had the quarterback injuries and the David Watfords of the world. Mazzoli was back. What did you make of the loss? Was it on Thanksgiving? I'm trying to remember what day of the game
Monday.
Was. On the big Thanksgiving Monday.
2 in a row now on the last play of the game that they could have and probably should have won. But as someone pointed out to me a long time ago, in the standings, they have W and L. They don't have a woulda, shoulda, coulda column, which the Ticats could be leading in right now, because they should have more wins. They should have at least 2 more. And, the problem with this is I think they're a better team than their record is showing. They've had the injuries. Dane Evans went down. Mazzoli was missing for a while. Brandon Banks has been out. All these things have hurt. But ultimately, who cares? You're going to be judged on what the standings say, and your playoff path is going to be based on the standings. And right now, they are putting themselves in a bit of a tough spot. Even if they are close losses, it could be 1 point, it could be 100 points. It doesn't matter. They're still losses. And, they're hosting the Grey Cup this year, as everyone knows. They clearly wanted, and I think the expectation and the hope here was that they would have one of those great years, would get the bye in the first round, would play a home game before the Grey Cup and then the Grey Cup at home. It's looking less and less likely that simple path is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially, obviously they just announced Tim Horton right at full capacity now, right? Things were looking good for the Grey Cup, for just that raucous home field, advantage happens obviously more in the CFL than it does like in the NFL, sure. NFL where it's happened once ever. But is that disappointment? Are you sensing that among the players and fans?
Well, not yet, because they could still get there. And so, no one's the expectation, the expectation coming into this year was they should be there, especially in the East, which has, for the last number of years, I'm not breaking any news to anybody. The East has been a division that's been there for the taking, and Hamilton's been the best team. So I think that was the expectation. And, for Hamilton fans, this is not a memory that they cherish, but, you think back to that game a few years ago where they played the Grey Cup game in Regina against the Rough Riders. And it was clear from the opening kickoff, the Ticats had no hope of winning that game. Saskatchewan playing at home in front of that crowd in those conditions, they were going to win. And that's the hope here, that if you get the same thing here, that maybe you get that same swell, that same momentum, that same home field thing. You just got to get there. And here's the big deal about this right now. I mean, Jeremiah Masoli has looked okay. I mean, he's been not terrible, but he's been not great. But Dane Evans is going to be back, and I think he comes in still. I think most people still see him as, forget everything that's happened so far. When Dane Evans comes back, things will be fine. And I don't know if that's true, but that's a commonly held view. Things will be better when Dane gets back.
How did you think Masoli performed on Monday?
Okay. I mean, he was better. No question he was better. And Orlando Steinauer, the head coach of the Ticats, has pointed out on more than one occasion that Masoli has not played a lot of football lately. Because don't forget, he was hurt. Well, we didn't have a season last year. The year before, he was hurt. So perhaps it's not surprising that it's going to take a guy a little while to get back into the groove. But he's been okay. And I think that's not what a lot of people thought Jeremiah Masoli was going to be. They thought he was going to be really good. He was the starter starting the season. And so, this is why in the CFL, good teams have two starting quarterbacks. And you just hope that in time, as you get closer to the playoffs, that one of them, that both of them are healthy and both of them are playing okay, but one emerges as the star. And we'll see. You pointed out, it's a shorter season. There's not the same runway to be able to figure this out, but we'll see. That's the hope.
It's surprising to me how well the Argos have done lately, right? Obviously they have that win early on, kind of struggled, but then it seems like with Chris Jones, the defensive, last week, and then really sluggish start, obviously against the Ticats, came back and won at the end. What are you making of the momentum with Toronto, and do we see them on the other side against presumably Winnipeg?
Well, I live in Hamilton. If I say that Toronto is going to be in the Grey Cup, I might be assassinated. I'm not that brave to say that. Let's put it this way. The Argos right now have a 2-game lead on the Ticats in the standings. They both have 5 games left. 2 of the teams that Toronto are going to play, Ottawa and Edmonton, you would think are win games for Toronto. That gives them 4 wins ahead of Hamilton, which means Hamilton will have to run the table if everything falls into place as you expect it might. Hamilton will have to run the table to have a shot at first place in the East and host all the way through. I mean, it's a tall order. So right now it looks like you're going to have to maybe go to Toronto and maybe beat the Argos on their home field. Now, the good news about that, if you're a Ticat fan, is the last Toronto home game, they got 6,700 people. So there are guys playing in the CFL, and I'm only halfway joking about this. There are guys playing in the CFL who came up playing their university ball in the States who've probably never played in front of a crowd that small. Their high school inter-squad games probably drew more than 6,700 people. So, you can go to Toronto, and it's not like it's a daunting, overwhelming, impossible home field that you're going to have to deal with. It's just the extra game. That's it. And it's not even a lot of travel. It's an hour. It's not an overwhelming obstacle. It's just, as I say, one more game potentially.
Yeah, that, and I know that, the Toronto attendance jokes and everything, and I hear online.
Not a joke though anymore.
Well, I just, Scott, we lived through all the XFL everything. I've lived through all these things, and we don't need anything. I do not know how you can be in attendance at that game and be like, yeah, this fine, we're good. I mean, I was watching the game. I was like, this is a staggeringly scary crowd.
It really is, and there's two ways to look at this. MLSE owns them. MLSE has more money than Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates probably put together. I mean, not really, but they can keep this thing going. They can write it off and whatever. And one of the theories out there is they'll just hold on to this and keep it going simply because the dream is for the NFL one day. And if we have football, if we're the people who are running football in the city and have kept the torch lit, that'll give us an inside track on getting an NFL team. On the flip side, if that theory is just people outside making up that theory and it's not real, you do wonder how long a company like MLSE is going to continue to prop up a franchise that is, their attendance has gone down every single game this year. They haven't broken 10,000 yet. And as I say, 6,700. I mean, that is an astonishingly, horrendously low number for a professional football game anywhere. And so, it depends on where MLSE is on this. And, they're not going to tell us. But you hope, for the sake of the league, you hope that it's in the first category, even though that might involve an NFL team. But you hope at least they're committed and they're saying, we're just going to keep doing this because really, I mean, relative to our bottom line, how much is the CFL really costing us?
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard because Toronto's winning right now, right? I mean, they are doing okay. I laughed. They were giving away the Argo sweatshirts, right? All the merchandise at the game, right? And now they're selling them online because obviously there weren't enough people in the stands to give away, the 10,000 or whatever sweatshirts. I mean, that's not a good. I don't know. I don't want to get too negative on it, but that's not a good look.
No, but imagine what the crowd would be like if they were losing. I mean, this is a winning team. And again, this is, jokes are made about it. I don't think it's really funny at this point. Yes, you can poke jabs at it. You can say that, the first game of the year when they had 99,000 something, half of them were Ticat fans, which is true. Probably. I mean, more than half maybe were Ticat fans. But no, it's not a healthy thing for the league. And here's the other thing. Years ago, and it's gone on and on and on, but the Jays years ago, they had good crowds, and then they became the team. They became the cool place to be. That even if you weren't necessarily a Blue Jays fan, the Dome was the place to be because it was hopping, and it was young, and it was exciting. Who would go to an Argo game right now and sit in those stands and go, you know what? I really feel like I'm in the hop and happen in the hot place in Toronto right now. You couldn't possibly. And that may be the biggest obstacle. Somehow the Argos and the people behind them, I think, have to figure out some way to make it cool to go to an Argo game. And for the life of me, I have no idea how you do that. But I think if you can make it so that, you know what? Yeah, I don't mind being seen here. This is kind of a cool place to hang out. And I don't even care if I'm watching football. It's just fun to be around. If you can do that, you have a chance. But I don't know how you do.
Yeah, I mean, we just came back from the Golden Knights home opener, and I know it's nice. Bigger crowds on these, but it's
like
a whole.
Hat, by the way,
thank you. It's a whole show. It's a whole experience. I mean, there are things that can be done where I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but you're like, wow, this was a show, and they had performers and light spectacles and things. And I mean, not that it's all, the football's good. I mean, the Toronto's doing well. It's frustrating. I want to get your thoughts a little bit on the other games this weekend, right? We are making the voyage up to BC on Saturday. We're going to be in attendance for our first CFL game. Stamps coming to town against America's CFL team, the BC Lions. What are you making of that matchup? Calgary seems to be having some success right now.
Just before I answer that, let me just go back for one more second to something you just said about the Vegas and the show and everything. Yeah. When Bob Young took over the Ticats, 2005, I think it was, 2004, whatever year it was that he came in, one of the things he said right off the bat was, we are trying to make an event here so that it doesn't matter what the score of the game is. It doesn't matter if you come to then Iverwin Stadium and Hamilton loses 50-0. We're going to give you something that when you leave the park, you can still say, you know what? Yeah, they got shelled, but we had a good time. And it costs money. And I'm not sure that in Toronto, they want to spend much more money. And I'm not sure what that thing would be or what those things would be. They tried that authorized official tailgating. That seemed like it was not really success. They've tried other things. I don't know. But that I think Bob Young was onto something there. You have to inoculate the experience so that it doesn't matter what the score is. And anyway, to your point, I always, because I'm old enough now to have seen enough CFL, that even when Calgary is not having the kind of year that Calgary always has, I still always just expect that Calgary is eventually going to start having the year that Calgary has. I mean, how many years in the last 40 has Calgary really been bad? Not very many. And so, you know what? Yeah, they're not having a typical Calgary year, but I'm not a betting man, but if I ever was, and I was ever betting on the CFL, I would always have a very hard time betting against Calgary, only because I always just assume that at some point the switch is going to get flicked and they're going to be Calgary again.
So you're not feeling good for the BC Lions?
BC's had a nice year. And I'll tell you what, I mean, one of the great stories in BC, I love this story because I remember talking, Nathan Rourke, who's their backup quarterback there, the Canadian kid, he played down here in the Burlington Oakville area in high school. I remember I've done a number of stories. I've talked to him a number of times back when he was there, and he had a terrific story. When I say terrific, I mean, it was really disappointing for him, but he was a lights out prospect in high school. I remember watching one video highlight pack of him, and I think he connected on a touchdown pass where the ball was in the air for 55 yards or some stupid thing. And I mean, this is a high school kid in Canada, and he couldn't get anybody to be interested in him. He just, D1 teams, there was no interest in this guy. And so he went to a junior college or a D2 school, I can't remember exactly where, played well, finally got his chance in NCAA in Division I. But even then, he was the guy who was invisible. And, you know, he came up and he's had his shots here. He's had some chances this season with BC. And honestly, he's looked good. And he's one of the guys that I root for because, you know, there's another guy. Now, it's a hockey thing. You said you're not a hockey guy, but there's another story from around here. Cam Talbot, who is now goalie for Minnesota, been with Edmonton, been with Calgary. Same situation. Never drafted in the OHL. I covered him for ages playing for the Ontario Junior A Hamilton Red Wings team. Went down to Alabama Huntsville, the hockey hotbed of Alabama, to play in university because that's the only place that would take him. These are stories, Nathan and Cam and these guys. These are kids they're men now, but that you root for because they've never had anything given to them. They've had to work and scratch and claw and scramble, and then when they make it, man, you're happy for these guys. So even though what I said about, you know, I expect Calgary, you don't want anyone hurt to get Nathan in there. I kind of hope Nathan does get a shot, and if he does, I kind of hope he wins.
It'd be good. I mean, Lucky Whitehead's out. You know, there's some struggle. You know, some offensive deficiencies, running the ball, things that we need to be doing better. But Calgary is heating up at not a good time for us to be making our maiden voyage to BC play. So I'm not super excited for that. And having Daniel Austin rub my face in it with Calgary, maybe traveling.
You never know. You know, maybe you'll bring the magic to BC place. You'll have the pixie dust that'll be sprinkled over the field, and it'll be a blowout for BC.
This Blue Bomber Elks thing, you know, we had Dave Campbell, or we're going to have him, depending how I produce the show here, we're going to, you know, have the Trevor Harris, right, being benched, all these things. You know, the rematch again, are we expecting any different with Edmonton getting blown out by 27 points with a different quarterback under center?
So first of all, Winnipeg is really good. I mean, we saw that in the first game of the year. We saw it in the Grey Cup last year here in Hamilton. We saw it in the first game of the year with Hamilton. We've seen it throughout the year. And, you know, what I said about Calgary, I say the same thing about Edmonton. I'm old enough to not have many memories of Edmonton teams being awful, and worse than being awful, seemingly being in a state of disarray almost, or at least that whether it is or isn't in disarray, that kind of is the perception outside, that it looks like, what in the world is going on there? And so, again, you kind of always think, well, Edmonton will figure it out. I'm not sure they're figuring it out this year. I'm not expecting they're figuring it out against Winnipeg right now. Maybe it's the name. I mean, look, this may pick a scab for some. When they named them the Elks, I was on the record on the radio talking about that may have been, in my mind, the dumbest name anyone could have possibly come. I mean, any other word that starts with E you could have come up with. And if I'm correct grammatically, I don't even think Elks is grammatically correct. Isn't the plural just elk? I think. Well, so I'm not even. I mean, I think the name has screwed them up completely. They got to go back, revisit it, find a new name that starts with E, and start over again. And maybe that'll get them back on track. But it won't be in time for this weekend.
As someone that hosts a podcast called the Markcast with no co-host that's named Mark on it, I know how it goes with questionable naming sometimes. But sometimes you do have to just roll with it.
You do. I mean, look, the CFL has a glorious history of strange names. I mean, the Tiger Cats is just cats, really, if you think about it. Really, and, you know, we had two Rough Riders, as everyone knows, for a long time. And I still am trying to wrap my head around the fact that Red Blacks, I think, is still all capitalized, yes. Which I think means every time you say it, you have to say Ottawa, Red Blacks! You have to yell it. I mean, I think that's what they're saying. I don't know.
I would go on record saying that the Red Blacks are the worst name of the
love the mascot, love the colors, love the traditions, love the sawing and everything else. But it's a yeah, it's a kind of a weird name. Let's be honest. This league, I mean, the Alouettes, great name, historic name. I don't know how many people. Maybe I'm underestimating people. I don't know how many people know it's a little bird. Maybe a lot of people do. It's not exactly the most terrifying figure that you like to think of football. I mean, you got the Bears, you got the Vikings, you got the Packers, all these names, and then the Alouettes. Chirp, chirp, chirp. I mean, it's not exactly the CFL. It's part of the great tradition of the CFL, the unusual naming conventions and things that happen.
Yeah, we have one of our listeners. He's a character artist, and he every week, you might have seen them float around on Twitter, but he'll do all these matchups. Yeah, and it'll be like the World War II pilot against the Alouette, or but it's like trying to animate these. But he's a wonderful. Jenna, a friend of our show, is a Red Blacks fan, so we can't say too much bad about the. Speaking of that matchup, our final bit of conversation here, rematch again, like all these, it's like so weird. Like every week it's like we're going to there and then we're back again. So now we have the Alouettes going to Ottawa. Ottawa's still kind of a bottom basement team at this point. What are we making of that? But
Montreal without their quarterback.
That is true. Okay. Yes.
So who knows what, I mean, normally you would say Montreal's in a playoff race. They have a chance. They are trying to hold off Hamilton for the home field advantage to make, in the playoffs. So they're very motivated. I mean, you assume any team is motivated at this time of the year, but there's lots of reasons to think Montreal wins that, but then you take their starting quarterback out of the mix. I mean, you tell me what percentage changes when all of a sudden the most important guy on the field isn't there as far as expectations. I think it certainly, I still expect Montreal to win, but it certainly throws it into much more of a I don't really know situation to me.
That's true, yeah, because we're early on the West Coast here. We're going to do the rest of the show later. Yeah, the Matthew Schultz, right, of it all. I mean, is Alouettes are they out of contention now? Do you feel because Vernon's on the 6th game? I mean, are we seeing Vernon again?
Again, if they can maybe catch Toronto, that would be their best scenario, because then you got 5 games and then the playoff game bye. I guess I should look into the rules. If you have a bye in the playoffs in the first round, can you count that against one of your games on the 6-game list? I'm not sure if that works. Maybe someone else who's way smarter than me can figure that one out. But no, I mean, look, we saw here with Hamilton, we saw the team, what happens when you get down deep into your quarterback roster. And, they won games, but it wasn't pretty. And, if you were watching the CFL for purely aesthetic and entertainment value, those games probably didn't do much for you. But, we started this whole topic by saying, it's win and loss. Only in the scoreboard, it's just win and losses. Hamilton won with their 3rd string quarterback. So, it would be ridiculous to dismiss Montreal and say they can't do it. It'd be crazy to do that in this league. And how many times over the years in this league have we seen a backup quarterback come in, whether we know much about him or not, and suddenly go, holy, who's that? Where has he been? I mean, back to Calgary and BC, both. Over the years, how many times has someone got hurt and then you end up with a future Hall of Famer coming off the bench that we knew nothing about? So, that's the CFL. It's theoretically what we could be seeing in Montreal is the beginning of a new Hall of Fame career this weekend. I don't know. Maybe not. Or maybe he'll be cut after this week. Who knows? But it's the CFL. Anything can happen.
I feel like more of the book's been written on Matthew Schultz, so I feel like he's a little more known, right?
Yeah, no, and again, it's a situation of just this league over the years where it's had its real depth in a lot of ways has been at quarterback. Not every team, not every time, but think how many guys are among the greats that we would count among the great quarterbacks of the modern era who didn't come up to Canada as the starter when they got going. They were coming off the bench and then opportunity presented, and all of a sudden they took it and ran with it. And then we said, years later when we're talking about them and someone says, oh, you remember that Doug Flutie didn't start his first game up here? And you go, really? What? Jeff Garcia didn't start his first game up here. I can't remember if Warren Moon did or didn't, but that was before my time probably. But it's not uncommon for someone to come in that we don't necessarily know much about or expect much from, and all of a sudden you've got something.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the schedule here really is Stampeders BC is really the game of the weekend. I mean, it's really kind of a scary otherwise, but I'm glad that we were learning about this as we were recording the show. So thank you for coming on. Any final thoughts? Have you been so great with your time?
No, you know what? Just appreciate you doing this. I look at there's so many things. I am just, we go back to the Toronto thing for a second. I don't want to end on a downer, but geez, I hope that somehow before the end of the year that they can get a decent crowd, one decent crowd in there to show some signs of life. And I don't want to finish this segment by just, being the sayer of doom or whatever else, but just to give some indication that there is a hope that this thing can get turned around. I would love to see them, 15,000, which is still not enormous, but it would be a sign. It would be something. Let's hope. I mean, if people are listening in Toronto, just for the sake of appearances and offering a little optimism, go out and sit there and, you can watch Netflix on your phone while you're sitting there. If you really don't want to watch the game, just get there for once.
Yeah. It's again, like I said, I just can't imagine looking at that and being like, this is fine. This is we're all hanging in there. So
especially, I know you got to go, but especially after, the Canada soccer game that was played there this week, and you look at the crowd for that and you think, okay, if you could somehow drop that crowd with the flags and the cheering and the chanting and the excitement, if you could somehow for one game drop that crowd into an Argos game, you would have something. Because and again, not to go in circles, when TFC was, before they were good, before they won championships, now they're bad again, but people would go to games at BMO Field there, not necessarily a lot of people even to see soccer. They went because they wanted to be part of the excitement in the crowd. And yeah, you watch that soccer game this week and you go, man, if that could ever happen for an Argos game, you would get people coming back, even if they couldn't care less about football, because they just love the atmosphere. I just, fingers crossed that it can happen before it's too late.
Yeah. I hear, traffic's too bad. The stadium's not in the right place. It was on a Wednesday. It was I mean, you hear a lot
and
of
the stadium, and it would go back. I mean, the dome was too big, and BMO will solve all of our problems, and an outdoor stadium and grass, and like every single thing that has always been an excuse has not turned out to be the panacea. So ultimately, it's going to be: do people care? Do they not care? And if they don't care, how do you make them care? And if you can't make them care, well, then what?
Well, Scott, thank you so much. So gracious with your time. I really appreciate it. Hopping on here this week, talking. We're getting through the season, week 11, so we'll be there before we know it. So thank you so much.
Anytime. Take care.
Well, I'm so excited, Gemma here talking. I said finally we're getting some female voices on the podcast. Dorothy, my wife, will be very happy that it's not the old man club anymore. We're talking with some BC Lions, America's CFL team, and then also I want to get your thoughts on kind of the CFL in general. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold, but other than that, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Reid.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we are going to the game this week. We're making the venture up north, my wife and I. So we're very excited. I mean, just in general for BC and everything, but especially this week to get your thoughts on that matchup. Like you said before we start recording, coming off the bye week and everything. Just first off, what have you general thoughts as we enter week 11? Are we feeling good about the season? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to feel good about this season if you're a BC Lions fan. There are obviously still areas of potential concern, the lack of a run game being the number one, but I know that was going to be a focus heading into the bye week. Another possible concern is poor Lucky Whitehead's broken fingers. I don't know if you saw the image they posted, but that is horrific. I can't believe he tried to finish the game with two very broken fingers. And I think that'll be something that they really have to address heading into this week. The Stamps are obviously coming off 2 big wins over the Rough Riders, and will be hungry to keep going.
I know that was the thing. A couple weeks ago, I was feeling a lot better about this matchup, and now Calgary's got quite a head of steam coming. Bo, the Jake Mayer, right? Obviously some concern there. It doesn't seem like there's any overlap, between him and Bo Levi, but it seemed like that was a good trusty backup to have, right? I mean, Jake's come in multiple times, played better than Bo has many games. Thoughts on that? Just kind of that QB dilemma, and then obviously with Jake being out now for the game.
Yeah, I just saw that this morning, and that's definitely a wrinkle in their plans for sure. As you said, he's been such a great. He's come in and really proved himself for the Stampeders this season, and to lose him who knows how long, even just one game, is definitely problematic. I think Michael Connor hasn't been tested really. Definitely not this season. Not much in the CFL in general. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of Canadian QB action. But we'll see. Definitely going to be a tough matchup for sure.
What do you make of Bo's struggle so far this season? It was like he was hurt. We thought, okay, once he comes back, kind of all will be good. It's taken a little while. Now it does seem like they're finally kind of hitting their stride.
Yeah. Bo Levi Mitchell is such an interesting human. He's so like exuberant, and he's got so much passion for this game that when he's not playing well, the biggest critic is himself. He is his biggest critic, and he will do whatever it takes to get back in that game. So I think you're starting to see that. You're starting to see him come around. I don't know exactly, besides the injury, what the issues were previously, but I wouldn't count him out. He's a force to be reckoned with for sure.
What has it been like, in BC, kind of covering the team, right? Obviously, we have the new ownership coming in, a lot of, it seems like a lot of excitement. We've talked, obviously, Lucky being injured now, but, the excitement around him, right? And the costumes and things. What is it like with that organization? Does it feel like there's kind of some fresh energy, some fresh blood going through there?
It really has. The last couple of games really did feel like there was something like percolating, and I haven't felt that for a long time around this team. Even the last two games, the last two home games weren't exactly the results that the team would have wanted. The Winnipeg game was a little bit ugly by the end, but there was young people in the stands, which I haven't seen a ton of previously. You've still got your season ticket holders who generally skew to the grayer hair, but you're really starting to see a little bit of momentum with this team, and I think that's huge. I think part of it is the new ownership. I think he's really making a concerted effort to really put the team out there, but he hasn't had much of a chance to do that. I think the bigger impetus for the excitement is the performance, and that comes from Michael Riley's had another big year, even with this elbow injury that he's still going through, and Lucky Whitehead's been just terrific. And then we've got the stalwarts that have long been the backbone of this team, the Brian Burnhams and the TJ Lees. And even on defense, we're seeing some young guys come up in Jordan Williams, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time for the team. It'll be interesting down this last stretch here to see if they can pull it all together and really secure a spot in the playoffs. But I think people are intrigued for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, as competitive as the Rough Riders loss was, right, I don't think any of that similarness could be said about the loss to Winnipeg. I mean, I felt very much like a thrashing kind of from the first drive down. You have to hope coming off a bye week, right, there is more of a rebound that way. Any sense, I just, what do you think about realistically, like, finding the run game in 7 days or whatever? I mean, I just don't like, they always say, well, we're going to figure this out. I'm like, you can't just develop a run game that you have not had all season.
For sure. I think it's probably something that they've been working on behind the scenes. And we just haven't seen it come to fruition on the field because so much of their offensive production this season has been from those big plays, and they look great, but you can't count on them. They're not as reliable. So I think that they're starting to try and shift that focus. Like you said, I don't think it comes about in 7 days. I hope that we can see a move towards that come Saturday. But I definitely think it's going to be a process. I don't think it's going to be an automatic.
Yeah, I just worry about that. I worry that it seems like they had a good momentum going, and that's a thing, right, in football, and you can lose it at the same time that we have Calgary, right? The Argos really heating up on the other side, and it does feel like we're having struggles at not an ideal time of year, right? I mean, I don't care if you start 4-1 or whatever, but if you finish the season 4-12 or whatever, I mean that's kind of where we start getting into questionable territory.
Absolutely, yeah, you can totally stink out the joint if you finish with a playoff spot. And that's the thing, they're not stinking out the joint, they're just kind of losing steam in the middle of games. And that's concerning for sure. I think that is something that they can address. And I'll be very interested to see how they go about tackling it, especially against a team that, like you said, does have that momentum coming in and is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with.
What is it like covering a team like the BC Lions that maybe aren't on the height of everyone's radar, right? As someone younger, right? As a woman, I mean, covering these, what is the vibe around the team right now? I mean, I know we're trying to revitalize, the franchise with the new ownership, right? But what is that experience like?
What I love about these guys is how much they love what they do. Their passion for this game. I talked about Bo Levi Mitchell's passion, but it's honestly infectious throughout the league. This is my third season covering the Lions, and I think I could count on one hand the number of guys you couldn't feel their desire to be here and their love for football and their love for playing this game here in Canada as well. So I think that's something that really resonates. I also cover the Canucks and the Whitecaps, so it's three very different experiences, in the rinks and in the stadiums. And I think there's something definitely special about the CFL. You get people in Riders jerseys coming out to like a Winnipeg Lions game. It's people love their team no matter what. And it doesn't matter if they're winning or they're losing. They love their team and they will support till the day they die. Whereas I would say Canucks fans are a little more fickle.
It's interesting, now as we're approaching hockey season, I see a lot of my steadfast CFL media people online, right? It's like immediately switching to NHL, like immediately, because it's, you kind of got to know where the bread's buttered, right? I mean, do you feel like even within Canada, I mean, we talk about the CFL's woes and we've covered this forever, it is just the second child, even in its own country, right, to the NHL? Yeah,
absolutely. I do feel like that. And it sucks because it is such a great experience. Like I said, the guys are so passionate. They put on the on-field product is really quite amazing, and I don't think it's appreciated enough. I think, especially in BC, there's a lot of people who come from the suburbs and come in to watch games. It's not a lot of like the downtown folks coming to see this cool experience in a downtown stadium, whereas like you could walk and have dinner and all that. No, it's people coming in on the SkyTrain, and that's really disappointing. I don't know how you fix that. If I did, I would have a lot more money. But I really hope that the CFL can find this younger generation and ignite their love for the game, because it's pretty special.
Yeah, when we planned everything, I thought, we're looking at the maps and stuff, and we've got an Airbnb downtown, and we're trying to do that whole thing. I thought, wouldn't everybody do this? But it is an odd, like you said, that most of the people that are watching are still traveling in, even though you have this, what seems like a really cool kind of hip. There's like a museum and stuff, or like a science center. I mean, I'm looking at the map and seeing the things, and you would think that would be where, like in Seattle with the Kraken now, like that is what they're developing, right? Is this hub with Climate Pledge and everything downtown and the bars and the hotels. It is weird that it's not working the same way there,
Well, and for the other sports, for the Canucks and the Whitecaps, you do see that younger audience. You do see, and I don't know if it's that people of my generation weren't brought up with the CFL. I definitely was. My mom had Edmonton Eskimos season tickets on the 50-yard line when I was a kid. So I grew up going to Eskimos games. And she is still like the biggest Michael Riley stan. She's so jealous of my job all the time. But I don't know if we need to engage kids and kind of grow that love from that level, or if there's another way to go about it. But you do see it with the Whitecaps. You see lots of families coming out to Whitecaps games. With Canucks games, you see a lot of younger people who do live in the downtown core who are excited about this team and wearing the jerseys, the Pedersens and the Quinn Hughes jerseys. I don't know what the answer is, but it's three very significantly different groups of fans for each of the teams.
One thing I want to get your thoughts about, we've been tracking this a couple weeks now, is the Cody Fajardo of it all, right? It's this week our episode's called Cody Fajardo, the Man in Black, ? Kind of like a Westworld thing, right? Is he going to be the white hat? Is he going to be the black hat? You know what I'm saying, right? It's like this slow evolving heel turn. We watch a lot of wrestling. What do you make of all of that going in? He's going home on the bye week. His time heal wounds. What are your thoughts on Cody?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by Cody Fajardo. He had a big game out here a few weeks ago, and I thought that he was really good in his post game. He talked about how there were so many fans in the stands cheering for them that he couldn't tell what the final call was on that crazy last play. So I think that his personality is maybe not what fans are used to. But yeah, no, I'm very intrigued to see where the saga goes with Mr. Fajardo.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, if we're winning, it's great, right? You know, and then calling out receivers. I mean, surely you've had to see some of those comments about it. I mean, is that something? I mean, you've talked with players and teams. Would you be mad? Like, I would be mad going into the locker room later, being like, bro, you kind of threw me under the bus here.
From my experience, you can see those tensions this season we're not in the locker rooms, but there have been times when people have called out their teammates and you can really see the tensions in the locker room. So I can't imagine that they're just not there. I'm sure that he's got some dinners to pay for to kind of patch over any hurt feelings. But yeah, I definitely think that there's some work to be done on the chemistry of that lineup.
I'm looking to see where is Cody from? I'm looking at he's American. I'm trying to figure, because it said that a lot was made this week. He went to Nevada. A lot was made that he was going home on the bye week, right? That he wasn't spending time maybe with the team. Is that? I mean, the Lions are coming off a bye week. Is that non-traditional to go home?
I think a lot of guys do go home. I know some guys will have their families brought up to Canada as well, especially if they're in a point of the season where they're kind of like make it or break it time. But these guys also need like some time off, physically and mentally, to kind of reset and heal. I don't blame him for taking for going to Nevada or wherever. It looks like he's from Brea, California,
yeah.
Which I would not have guessed. I would have definitely guessed like Texas, but
yeah, right.
He just gives off a Texas vibe. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, I think that he needed some time away from the team to reset. It makes that whole absence makes the heart grow fonder thing. He might appreciate what he's got when he gets back.
That's the thing is, I mean, to be the lead quarterback in Saskatchewan, where they don't have a lot of other sports. I mean, there's a lot more of a, it has to be one of the more higher profile quarterback positions, right, in the CFL. Now that is a small standard compared to maybe some of the other leagues and things, but it's, it's all in comparison, right? And that's something where I know we don't like criticism when it comes to the podcast, and so I have to imagine that it's something, but it's also like it's football. So you kind of have to like take that also with a grain of salt.
Yeah, there's definitely two sides for it, for sure. But like you said, he's under a mighty microscope out there in Saskatchewan. It can't be easy. We've started to talk a lot more about players' mental health, and good for him for saying, "Hey, I need some time away," even if that's not how it was framed.
Thoughts on the other two matchups this weekend? I mean, it's kind of, I was going through this with Scott Radley right before we record on here. I said, these are not the most intriguing matchups the other way. We had Dave Campbell on talking about the Trevor Harris thing. we're going into Edmonton, Winnipeg, right? Blowout before. Now we have, former XFL quarterback Taylor Cornelius starting for, the XFL besmirching, Edmonton Elks. So what thoughts on kind of that whole dilemma of that game?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't know. I'm not particularly excited about it, to be honest. The most exciting thing is that the Bombers could clinch, I guess. But like, if they don't do it this week, that would be a story, is if the Elks beat the Bombers. I think these are two teams that we kind of know where they're at. The Elks are messy, and the Bombers are dominant. Like, I can't get too excited about that.
That's a polite way of saying it. Messy is that's a good polite way of describing it. I've heard lots of other words be used to describe the Elks situation. So, and then that. These matchups back to back, we're still learning the CFL season, right? I think earlier in the year doing these like back to backs and the Labor Day thing. I mean, now we're Alouettes back at Ottawa again. I mean, not a lot of juice there. Thoughts on Vernon Adams being, going down, right? Is Matthew Schultz, are we taking the world by storm with him?
I think, again, it's someone who's pretty unproven. There's a lot to be seen. I'm, again, not terribly excited about it. They're kind of two teams that are battle of the basement, basically. And I thought that last week's matchup was all right, but I'd like to see a little bit more of a dynamic game going in this weekend.
Yeah, it's just hard, and especially where the story of the Alouettes all year has kind of been Vernon Adams, and now Vernon Adams is out. That to me, it's very hard when, obviously they have other guys on defense there and running back that can drive storylines, but it is really hard when kind of the main cast character, the main character of the cast goes down, and then you're like, okay, now are we still watching Friends?
Absolutely. Are we still watching this movie?
Yeah.
Like, is this movie still being made? What's happening here? And I think that's a question that Montreal's definitely asking itself. But it's a whole next man up mentality, is what they would say. So let's see what the next man can do.
Thoughts on the Argos seeming to get momentum right? I thought that their win, although they won on Thanksgiving, was very sloppy, as they seemed very stagnant, even in their win, the previous week. McLeod's our guy. We did the whole episode, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, king of the CFL, all these things. And so it didn't seem like offensively, right? I heard Dinwiddie yelled at all the players afterwards because it was like the worst offense, all these kind of things. So it's like the Argos are winning, but they're not looking dominant, but yet here they are very dominant in the top in the East, right? What are we making of this?
The East isn't great this season. I think that's what we're making of it. I think that, I think there's another locker room that's got some challenges. When your head coach is calling out players, basically, what did he say? Something along the lines of, I didn't think we were very good on offense, anyone except Mac, or something like that. That's pretty strong words from a head coach. So I think that they've definitely got to get it together if they have any hopes of making a playoff push here. But the East is disappointing this season. We've still got half a season left, but I don't think anyone's going to light a massive fire and go on a massive streak here.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard, right? For years the East, it's kind of just kind of a cluster F, right? Whatever. But now I'm like, it really is. I mean, it does seem like it's Winnipeg's world. I don't even see that dynamic last year with Hamilton where it's like, okay, Winnipeg's the underdog, whatever kind of thing. I just don't see. I'm fearful for a very boring Grey Cup. I mean, I know Argos, did give Winnipeg their 1L, but seems like forever ago when Winnipeg was even close to losing anything.
Yeah. Does Winnipeg just seem like a juggernaut right now? And I'm one of those people who gets annoyed by teams that just win all the time. Like, it's boring.
It's very boring.
So I hope that someone gives them a run for their money. I don't know who's in a position to do that at this point. But I hope that there's a heel that comes in and plays spoiler
I mean, that's the thing. Is like, I don't know. We watch a lot of NFL too. I'm sorry, but like, I mean, the NFL is exciting this year because the Chiefs are losing a lot, and that's very much more exciting than a 4-0 Chiefs right now, or whether they're like 2-3 or whatever. That's far more exciting than 5-0 or 4-1. So it's hard, when there's only 9 teams to have one team it's like playing with cheat codes. It just seems very odd that they're just head and shoulders above everybody else.
It also makes it super boring to write. Like, how many times can you say, yeah, Winnipeg's great, everyone's doing really well, Andrew Harris is running back of the century, we all love Winnipeg. Like, it's just boring, right? Let's get some excitement in there. Let's mix it up. So I don't know what has to happen in order for that to take place, but someone's got to get in there and throw some sand into the gears.
Yeah, not Edmonton.
It's not going to be Edmonton. I'm sorry.
Final thoughts before I let you go. You've been so gracious with your time. I mean, we're getting there, right, to the Grey Cup. We're slowly seeing that. I saw that today Hamilton was announced that they get to host again in 2023. So I guess that'll be exciting. It's kind of a make good. Are we excited for the Grey Cup? I mean, I've been told for a long time now that this is a very exciting thing, but yet it seems like it's a Winnipeg one-way ticket.
It does, and it's also going to be so cold. Like, do you want to go to Hamilton in the middle of December? Because I do not. Well, I guess, I very much do, because I would love to go and cover a Grey Cup, but it sounds cold. So this West Coast girl does not get excited about the middle of December in Southern Ontario. I will get excited if the matchup becomes any more interesting. Right now it's just Winnipeg versus everybody, and Winnipeg steamrolls, and I'd like to see someone come out of the woodwork and just offer them a little bit of resistance, just a little.
It's really hard. I mean, just the last couple of weeks here, it's gotten where, okay, I thought maybe BC would give them a run, and like that. It's really hard to get that excited, and we have tickets bought. I mean, we have to get our tickets, but we're going. So I mean, the worst case, I will be out in front of Tim Hortons with a megaphone. That we will. So I really hope. My wife picked Winnipeg at the beginning of the season, right? So of course now it's this whole thing, but I am very concerned about that in terms of excitement. If it's just Winnipeg versus the world, I don't know.
Your wife is a smart lady.
Well, so I've been told. Gemma, thank you so much for your time and coming on. I hope you have fun. We'll be at the game this weekend. I hope you have fun covering the game, and we'll be wearing bright orange jackets, but I'm sure everyone else will be too at the BC place. So
I'll wait at you from the press box.
That'll be good. Yeah, we're in 216. We're in section 216. So look for the tall guy, and we'll have bright orange on. So
okay, sounds good. I'll see you there.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Reid.
Well, this is exciting. We have had a lot of XFL stuff break today. We have, with Jeffrey Pollack stepping down as CEO and president. And now we have a lot of USFL stuff. It's been coming out this week. The Birmingham Talk, a big article with Dylan Smith from Yellowhammer came out. We were going to kind of go through it on the show, and I figured let's get the man on that did the work and give him some credit for putting this together and see your thoughts. So, Dylan, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
We're doing good. So you're in Birmingham, Alabama, it's right?
I'm actually in the extreme northeast corner of Alabama, but we cover the entire state. So
that's good. We're used to talking with Canadians with their accents, and we'll manage through your Alabamian accent too. So that'll be good. So we're kind of going through this together. We've had the USFL a couple days ago. We saw they're talking to Birmingham. So we've covered the USFL for when it was the spring league. From Brian Woods, he did kind of a bubble league in San Antonio, and then last year they did Houston and Indianapolis. So then in the offseason it came out, Brian Woods has picked up a lot of the USFL trademarks, things from back in the day. So this is the first we've really heard about. Okay, we're going to Birmingham. We're setting up a hub city there. When did you learn about all this? Because I'm probably way deeper in this than maybe you were on first blush. So how did this all come to you?
Well, this all just it's been in the works for a while, and it's something that Yellowhammer News learned of pretty recently. in terms of more details that have emerged. So so what we've learned, we put it together, and we thought that is extremely newsworthy. It's going to be a huge boon to the entire state and to the city of Birmingham. But I mean, it's great for football fans, all across the United States. We as football fans, we fall is our prime, right? But I mean, with a spring league like this, I think it really engages a lot of the football fans all across the country, because we want football all season long. I think the more football that we get, the better. So I think it's a great opportunity for all involved, and we're certainly excited to hopefully going to see it materialize here soon.
Yeah, so what kind of happened, right? So Brian Woods has been on our show a couple times, CEO of the Spring League. So when it came out earlier this year that he was purchasing a lot of the USFL trademarks, was going to go in with Fox, they were going to do all this thing, I think the immediate thought from a lot of fans was, okay, we're going to have 8 or 10 cities, spread off across the country, right? We're going to do all this. And even when Brian was on our show, he had talked about his long-term plan of doing another hub city or a couple different hub cities, right? Maybe associating the teams with cities, but to go from one hub city to 8 or 10 cities is a huge undertaking in 6 months or a year. And so I don't know if this is what people want. I think this is great for the continuation of the league, right? And certainly for Birmingham. I mean, some of the quotes I see in here from some of the city leaders talk about the excitement that they're talking, it's the biggest sporting opportunity here since the Olympics. I mean, talk about some of the excitement. I mean, you've been to these meetings now with some of the city officials.
Yeah, so I think that the elected leadership that represents Birmingham and the greater Birmingham area, they see this as a tremendous opportunity, in the realm of sports, but also it can pour out into other aspects of the economy of Birmingham and the state as a whole. You're looking at tax receipts going up, so that's additional tax revenue for the city for further investment. And two, you've got Protected Life Stadium, which is a grand facility to host something like this that Fox Sports has proposed to Birmingham. And also you've got Legion Field, right? Which that's the older legacy type field that Birmingham has that'll serve as a practice field and a field for additional games. So I think that the city leaders really see this as a golden opportunity to really put Birmingham on the map. You're talking about billions of minutes in airtime exposure, with a prestigious name like Fox News and another one of their broadcast network partners, which is as the article stated, believed to be NBC. It's just the golden recipe, and you really couldn't dream of a better deal, right, if you're Birmingham. So the elected leadership is certainly very excited about it.
Yeah, that was something that struck a lot of people from this article was, we knew that Fox was in connection with Brian Woods, right? That they were kind of in conjunction. Bringing NBC into this to carry part of that. How did that come out, or how did you guys learn about that?
Well, it's we just believe it's part of the greater deal. It's which obviously it's not officially announced yet, but it's kind of understood that that's who the other partner would be. And so you've got Fox coupled with their potential partner with NBC. That it makes for extraordinary visibility for Birmingham on the national stage. And so and this is different, because you've seen these leagues come up, right? This better than anybody probably. I mean, they've come up and they failed, whether it's because of mismanagement, in terms of the finances, or operational costs, or whatever it might be. This is really, we've not had a situation like this before, where a network has approached local stakeholders and said, "Hey, we're taking the lead on this." And so, I mean, Fox is, you've got, Fox is the number one football network, right? And you've got that whole umbrella of Fox, which is, owned and operated by the Murdoch family. And, Gus Johnson, Reggie Bush flew into Birmingham and held meetings with local stakeholders. And so, you've got Fox Sports reporting directly to Rupert Murdoch on the deal. So, I mean, it's obviously very important to Fox that this gets done. and it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Do you know if did Birmingham put together a package for Fox? Did Fox reach out to Birmingham? I mean, because I don't know what would make more sense of a city. You know, it doesn't seem like that would have been the top of the list, right? Initially, I mean, just when you're top 10 cities, whatever. Obviously, USFL has history with the Birmingham Stallions, right? I know that some of the officials have been asked about that. I mean, was that the connection? Do you know why Birmingham?
I think they probably took a look at it and they said, that because like you mentioned, they had the Stallions, but so there's history there. But I think that, looking at a prime location, look, you've got a very friendly environment in the greater Birmingham area, right? Because you have the infrastructure there, you got the facilities, you got the fans, you've got the larger support network, you've got the hotel accommodations, you've got the entertainment. So all the right makings are there for Birmingham to really, host a successful season of this and for it to be the central hub. Now, as you stated, I mean, it's going to happen somewhere. And so if for some reason this does not materialize, they'll go somewhere like San Antonio or somewhere else. But I believe they set their sight, that Fox Sports sets its sights on Birmingham because of all the things that we just mentioned.
Some of the numbers here, where they're talking about audience views, right? 1.4 million, 700,000 on cable. Where did Fox present those numbers? Where did those numbers come from?
Those are Fox estimates. Yes, those are Fox estimates, and they do believe that that those numbers, are a reflection of the airtime or of the audience or the viewership that they would have. So, just for someone who, from an outsider's perspective, who's covering this, and as a journalist, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I think that it will garner huge attention, and it's like they stated, it's a spring league, so it's the only football action going on in the country at that time. And so, Americans love football. So, I mean, it's, and obviously I think it's going to be something that's of huge interest to all the football fans across the country.
Just a couple of I just want to clarify stuff on here because some things get lost in semantics. We've had the same thing with XFL stuff with, Miss Garcia and Dwayne Johnson and stuff. It says on here, Fox Sports is serving, they have acquired all the copyrights to the USFL, trademarks and brands and stuff. There's questions about that because like Brian Woods has owned some, Fox has owned some. Is that just Fox and Brian kind of as a package owns all that, or have those rights been transferred to Fox now?
No, I honestly don't know the specifics on how that went about. We just know that is the case, that they have acquired all branding. So that's the branding to the USFL as a whole, and the branding of the former team, so they could use the former teams in that, which I'm sure is very. I mean, it's nostalgic. So I think that the fans of this former league would be excited to see those same teams back in action.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I just because like we get all that, and people get like, well, so what does it mean? So I want to be, so if it's been presented that Fox is collectively owns all that, that's interesting for us and our listeners to kind of track all this, as you would be amazed that people like track where the trademarks and stuff exist. So, but as far as, and then it says on here, the 200 million investment from Fox with a goal of raising another 250 million. That number, I believe, is over a 3-year period, right? I've seen multiple figures out there. It's like 50 million a year or 200 million. Where are those numbers coming from?
That's right. Yeah, I think that those are numbers that they tossed around, that they discussed. And I believe that is over an extended period of time. But these are well-to-do investors too that we understand that they're speaking with. So from what we understand, these are it's private venture. So it's going to be well funded. And I believe one of the senators commented in the story to Yellowhammer News that this financing is, it's kind of unprecedented. Because it's strong, it's going to be built on a strong, fundraising apparatus. Because you've got, Fox Sports in with it, and just that whole name, it carries it, right? So it's easy to get behind something and throw dollars at something that is going to be successful. Because in my pure opinion, I don't think Fox would enter into something that they thought could potentially fail. Because they have they're the most recognizable name out there. So it's a prestigious brand, And I don't think they would get behind something or, propose something that they thought would potentially fail. So I think for that reason, they're probably going to have, a good amount of strong investment.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's talking, investments from Fox and then raising the additional money that Fox is putting forth a lot of that money, which we weren't really sure about because, Mr. Woods has had varied past and just, or so we've been told. So, when all this came about where it was, Brian Woods was working with Fox, the question a lot was, where is the money coming from to fund all this? And the understanding is that Fox is investing that from Fox itself, the $200 million.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, from Fox, that's a direct investment from them, from what we understand, and then that additional, I think, $250 coming from additional funding sources, and from what we understand, they are pretty wealthy private individuals.
Because I think XFL News Hub, which is our kind of mother, whatever site that we're on, commented in their article today. This is the first time that really a sports network has gone on. I know that NBC back in 2001 was pretty connected to the XFL, but this is like the first time the sports network is saying, like, we are running with this league. This is our league. We are investing money in this, right? So it's interesting from that regard that they feel so strongly about that.
Oh, you're exactly right. I mean, it's, and I think that should give a lot of people faith and confidence, right? Because, we can get our hopes up that there's going to be a new football league. And, this is not a relaunch. They're not billing it as a relaunch. This is a brand new league. And I don't know the specifics on the rules, but it's, they're kind of, it's like providing a fresh update for football, from what the NFL rules are. There's scenarios where it could make for some exciting comebacks and, just things like that using some innovative technology. So, from what we understand. So, Fox, like you said, Fox coming into this whole deal and carrying their weight behind it, that should, I think, set a lot of people's fears as if, is this going to be another league that fails? No, it's not, because Fox carries it.
And then just confirming on here, we have 8 teams, 10-week season, all those things. Were those numbers provided from Fox and things? I mean, those are confirmed numbers, or are those estimations in terms of time frame and the number of teams?
Yes, sir. That's right. Those are what Fox intends to implement. And so it will be over a 10-week regular season. And then I do believe an additional 3 weeks for playoffs and a championship game.
Do we know how long these talks have been ongoing? Like when did this, because you said it's been some time, it's gone back a little bit. How long has it been in the works, I guess?
Yeah, I believe it has been in the works probably since June or July of this year, from what we understand. And and that's, it seems like, that's not too long of a month stretch there, but I mean, it seems like this kind of materialized pretty quick. And then for it, right now we're kind of like on a threshold, right? We're, I've heard the expression, we're on the 1 yard line. We've got to punch it in. So really it's going to take an all hands on deck effort. I know there's a lot of local stakeholders that want to see this happen, but it's a lot of different governmental entities that, that will have to come together and say, if there's additional funding sources that we need to provide, for the operational costs, $0 go to Fox for this. So, so it's really just the stadium overhead of Protective Life. And, and they invest an extraordinary amount of money into Protective Life Stadium. And you would think to host events such as this. And, I just can't stress how big of an economic opportunity this is for that area and for the state in general.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I was looking on here. ESPN. I was just trying to figure out timeline wise. June 3rd was kind of when the news started coming out that they were launching the 8 teams and the USFL. So that timeline makes sense of a June, July, and I mean it is. And that was the thing was all these people thought, well, how are they going to do this over 6 months and go to all? It's like, well, no, because they're going to do. It's much easier to run through one city like this and do it that way. Any other stuff that has struck you? I've done my best with my journalism background to kind of pour through the article. In a different life before all this, I was on your side of everything. What any other takeaways that you've had from this that maybe I didn't ask about?
No, I think you did a good job of covering it, and I know your audience really appreciates it because it's something that it's of intrigue to a lot of people. and rightfully so, right? I mean, it's something new. I think that the exposure aspect of it, I think that, to me, I find that very interesting, because from what we learned with Fox intending to launch a very and put that in bold, very aggressive advertising campaign. I mean, they're going to advertise this thing, the USFL, and its games, on some of the most recognizable and most popular nationally broadcast shows. And so, I think that's a big deal, that they're willing to put that much commitment and effort into it.
Who has been representing this from Fox on the Fox side?
I don't know the inner workings of Fox personally, of who they're having interact with the local stakeholders and everything like that. I do know that they have brought in big, some of their larger brass to communicate this whole deal with them. As I mentioned earlier, Gus Johnson and Reggie Bush, two recognizable names with Fox. And so, but it's, in terms of the boots on the ground, who's facilitating this, I would assume that there are multiple people with Fox that are doing that, just because of the everything that surrounds the deal. But yeah, so that's what we understand.
And then the last question, sorry, has Brian Wood's name been brought up at all in any of these discussions? Have you? I mean, before I've started talking all this today with that, have you heard a lot about Brian Woods?
No, honestly, not. No, I've not. Yeah. So no, with you mentioning that, that's some of the first that we I individually have heard personally. So, but no.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to work all this out and figure, because it's hard getting information from that side of stuff. So this is good. Well, Dylan, I appreciate your time, peppering you with all these questions about all this hard work you've done, but I certainly appreciate you taking the time. And I think that our audience is really going to appreciate kind of your openness and willingness to come on and talk through all this. It's been helpful.
No, hey man, look, I really appreciate you, being interested in the story and with Yellowhammer news, and thanks for having me on, man. I really do appreciate it.
When the hub comes, we'll do a weekend. We would have done with the Spring League last year. They were in Indianapolis, and we would have done all that trips with the pandemic going on. It was challenging, but maybe if we can get past all that, we can get out to Birmingham, and that would be cool to do some live coverage out there.
Man, we'll do. Hey, let me know if you come down, and we'll treat you nice.
I will stay in touch. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Have a good one, man.
Welcome back. Want to thank all of our guests. There's 4 this week. 4 guests. I don't think we've ever had 4 guests. Have we ever had 4 guests?
We did. I think we had 5 at one time, but we had a guest host. I think we had 4 and a guest host with Ernesto. That was a busy week.
Very much so. Moving on, though, as you just heard from Dylan there, Birmingham and Birmingham Jefferson Convention Complex officials discussing playing all USFL games in that city.
Yeah, so to get your thoughts on this and some big takeaways, so we asked Dylan about, where'd the money come from? Because there's a lot of figures in this article. The big takeaways from me that Dylan had, we'll just kind of skim a lot of this text, Paul, is Dylan does not know who a Brian Woods is. That struck out to me. Because there's been lots of talks with Brian and all that stuff, and so that's, I'm just talking, because everyone's listening to the interview. It's things that struck out to me. Also, things that struck out to me was that according to them, they do believe that Fox owns all the trademarks now. I think there's semantics there. I think that Brian still owns some of them because it's a big debate, right? Like, who owns the USFL stuff? Does Fox own that stuff? Whatever. Fox is bringing $200 million to the table. They're hoping to raise another $250 million per private investors. I would assume that would be people that are owning stakes in the teams. The other interesting thing to me was that was kind of estimated. The XFL was estimated around $50 million a year operating costs. So that's kind of in line with that. But doing this bubble season, I was private messaging with a player that would be very interested in all of this spring league stuff, and they were asking me, well, when are we going to make the announcements? I'm like, well, they have time because it's not. And they go, well, no, if they kick off next year. I'm like, oh my God, it is middle of October. Like, I kind of lose track of all this stuff. So what do you think of doing basically all this USFL ends up being right now is a spring league with a different coat of paint?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't I don't know if the trademarks are completely clear. I know that there's court docs, there's like patents and trademarks filed or whatever. I don't know, man. I just don't like what's the draw here? Like, we're just gonna watch the spring league with different team names. That's basically, different coat of paint. I just don't know if like it's the draw that it's gonna be. People are gonna tune in and go, this is not really the USFL.
That's my fear. I was explaining this to Dorothy tonight because this was kind of the big story that came out today. There's been a couple articles this week. This was kind of the most in-depth one. That's why we talked to Dylan. I said, because last year it was in Indianapolis and in Houston, right? And they did like the split bubbles and then they played together. And I go, if we do it this year in Birmingham and it's not the Jousters, but it's the Stallions, because that was the Birmingham Stallions, does that draw 10 more viewers at all? Like, I don't know. I don't know that there's that much, because at this point, that is what it's feeling like. It's October. If they are kicking off in 2022, no coaches have been, none of this has been announced, right? This is kind of the first iota of information. And I just don't know to have the excitement of saying we're going to do the USFL thing when it really is just TSL 3.0, which is also great. I mean, that's fine. Like, we'll cover it, whatever. But I think this set like unrealistic expectations. Also, the numbers they have on here and these are from Fox per Dylan, but they're expecting 1.4 million on main broadcast and then 700,000 on cable. Those are tremendous numbers for a spring leaguey USFL combination, whatever this is.
Yep. It's going to be interesting to see if that those team names, that name recognition draws any more viewers. I'm not sure it will. I'm really not sure it will, because I think, we're getting to a part where there's oversaturation potentially. And I think more people are going to be interested in seeing what The Rock is going to put together. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the feedback I got today, right? If you have the XFL and they take the time and you're in the standalone markets, attracting the teams, the split bubble never made sense to me. I get COVID reasons doing that, but now, so we're going back to the one bubble, having the 8 teams, that's confirmed, 8 teams over 10 weeks. It feels very spring league San Antonio again, just a little bit longer. And maybe you can get some fans in the seats. Birmingham, population wise, are we drawing that many fans there? I know they're hungry for football, but I don't.
It is Birmingham. They do have an appetite for football there.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you get that. To me, I think it was a misstep if you wanted to acquire the USFL stuff, but not make as big of a deal about it. The other takeaway I had is Fox is the one of the quotes was they're planning to launch like an aggressive marketing campaign. And I go, well, that's kind of like the XFL's thing too, right? Is people have said for months, Rock just snaps his fingers and it's going to go.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, so is this like, do people care that much that if Fox just like blitzes a media campaign that this is going to, like, I don't know. I mean, it did fine before. It did like 400,000 viewers. Are we getting 3 times that, 4 times that, but just by more ad spend? I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. Like maybe first week you'll see people tune in just for the name recognition and then be like, oh, well, this is really like mediocre football. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we could sit here and guess all night long, but podcasts can only be a certain amount of hours.
Oh, no, you're good. I think there's going to be tremendous talent there, right? I think the people that were hoping for an XFL, some of the players I talked to, hoping for an XFL this year that didn't happen. I think there's going to be talent there. I just don't know if the USFL stuff is worth it. So
no. Speaking of other leagues, Reid's favorite league, the Fan Control Football, doing the Ballers Collective. It's an in real life NFL experience.
Oh, sorry. That should say NFT. That's my bad. Yeah. So they're doing. This is per Patrick Dees, who Patrick Dees was like liking comments on my tweets today. I didn't think Patrick liked this anymore. Yeah. So I'm like, this is just more ways for Fan Control Football to sell things, right? We're gonna say it's not an NFT. It's going to be an in real life NFT. I'm like, that's not an NFT. Is not
an NFT.
It's not an NFT. So Rob, our good friend Rob, owner, CEO, whatever, CEO of Fan Control Football, did an interview with Cameron De Silva with OSDB. Just a couple takeaways from this. They're going to return in 2022. They remember we were going to do the spring season and we didn't do that. They expect more ex-NFL players to take part of it. The things that I didn't like, they're expected to add more sports betting, which I said, then you can't change the rules between games. Like that is the one thing. The other thing, and this is the thing that got a lot of attention this week, he said that he would be open to be working with The Rock and that they, like, if the XFL wanted to come in, then they would have to play by the FCF's rules, which I said, what rules? And they would, but they would, but I go, so everyone goes, oh, this is so, I go, being open to being asked is very different than being asked. Like, so Rob I could be open to being president of the United States. Doesn't mean I'm going to be, I could be open to being the CFO of XFL. Like, just because Rob is like, oh yeah, I'd be open to it, does not mean that anybody in the world would ever partner with them for any of that stuff. So I just thought that was a clever way to do that.
That's a clever way to ride on some coattails there.
Yeah.
Very much so. All right. So with that being said, we got our big giveaway winners.
Yeah, big giveaway winners. So this is how we're going to do this. You're going to DM me. I think all these people are on Twitter, so you can DM me at the Markcast your information. We're going to do this. So the winner of the Argos jersey, you're going to need to tell me if it's the small or the medium, because Paul has both. And we need to figure out shipping, because if it's too expensive, I'll cover part of it, because I don't know where this person is located.
Right.
Steve Marksell, friend of the show, tweets a lot. He did what I did, put all the names in. So Steve, you're getting the Argos jersey. It's small or medium, just DM me. Shane Mellinson, you're getting the Markcast sweatshirt. I saw a lot of people wanting, I think a lot of Canadian viewers wanted it before it got too cold. So Shane Mellinson, DM me. And then here's the deal. On the Jouster shirts, very little interest, right? Everyone wanted the Argos, and then some people wanted the Markcast thing. So here are the two winners, but this is the deal. You have to pay for shipping if you want this. So Kyle and Max, you were the only people that wanted the Jouster shirts. I am happy to send them. You can Venmo me for shipping. I have them ready. Otherwise, I'm going to wear them because I'm not paying to ship stuff. You've already won before. That's why we're doing this, because people think Kyle and Max have already won before. So I love you, Kyle. And Kyle wants his white Jouster shirt. He tweets me about it all the time. Kyle, if you want to pay for shipping, I'm happy to send it to you. Same goes with Max. I have a feeling Max is going to say no, but that is my offer.
There you go. Well, with that being said, we want to thank everybody for listening. Have fun this weekend in British Columbia, rooting on the Lions. And we will see you here next week. Want to thank our guests again, one time for stopping by. Of course, Dave Campbell, Scott Radley, Gemma Karstens-Smith, and Dylan Smith, no relation, joining Reid and talking about the various things that have been going on this week. A lot of stuff.
When you interview four people, sometimes two of them have the same last name. The chances there in the world. So yes.
Especially with a common last name like Smith. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for all our guests. Thanks for you guys listening and watching us on YouTube. And we'll see you here next week.